In this tutorial, I will be adding some shrubs and ground covers to my plant. The use of shrubs and ground covers, we do not need to drag anything in perspective. We can just take a proper photo of a shrub or ground cover and then add it to our plant. It is good habit that if you don't use any files anymore, apart from the file that you're working on, that you close them, because otherwise they may take up some of your storage space. For this tutorial, I have already pre-selected a plan with a variation of planting, and this plan is also in your mail, so you can try and use the same. So the area that I will use for the shrubs and ground covers is this triangular space. So the planting that I'm looking for should also be in a triangle, and I'm looking for some area with a bit of variation. So for this tutorial, I will be using this triangle of planting, and then I will mirror it. So to select it, I can actually make use of a lasso select tool, the normal lasso, not a polygonal lasso, and I will just roughly select around the area that I want. It doesn't go too precise. And then to see the area in isolation, I go to my layers, and then I will just copy paste. So you will see it will copy is Ctrl C, paste is Ctrl V. It will then automatically create a copy of the area that I've selected, which is this area, and put it in my in a separate layer. So this layer, I will mirror it, edit, transform, and then flip horizontal, flip, right? And then I will bring this to my other drawing. So I go to layer, duplicate layer, and then select my garden drawing. So moving into my garden, it may be outside of my working space, so I have to drag it back up. Here we go. I will move it here, and I can probably scale it down a bit. Transform, scale, and scale down a bit. So could be something like this, right? Good. This is the planting area. So now the main thing I need to do is soften up the edges. And in order to soften up the edges, I can make use of a eraser with a spatter pattern. All right, initially I can just set everything to 100%. And so there's two ways of doing it. If you want to make sure that you don't delete anything, you could also layer mask it. So that's a second option. In this case, I'm okay with erasing it, so that yeah, because it's just a basic planting area. It's not a key area to my thing. So the problem with this spatter pattern is that you cannot drag it, because when you drag it, it will function like a normal brush. So unlike the brush that we use for the grass, the spatter pattern brush is not a dynamic brush, and therefore, in order to get that spatter pattern sort of rough, edgy feel, we just click rather than that we drag. Right? So I will click this until I feel that my planting is more or less nicely integrated into my new site here. Color wise, if I feel that the color balance is a bit off, for instance, this planting that I just introduced is so much brighter than the grass that I introduced, I may want to do a bit of color correction. So first I will be going to the grass, which has been here recorded as background copy. And now you can see, because I have so many layers, and I've not named them properly, that it is going to be a bit challenging to find the right layers. So it's a good practice to name everything properly. So my grass, I will name it grass. Layer 1 here, which is my planting area, I will call it ground covers. And then timber deck is timber deck, that's correct. Background copy 7 is my stone flooring. Background copy 5 is my graffiti. This is another timber deck that I put. This is my timber deck. This is my timber deck option 2. I can leave it as timber deck. Background copy 6 is my ivy. Background copy 4 is my concrete wall. Background copy 3 is my brick wall. Background copy 2 is my walkway. And surroundings is surroundings, white is white, and background is background. So now at least everything is sort of named properly. So now for my grass first, I'm going to adjust it to increase the brightness by a bit. So I keep the grass selected and I increase the brightness by a bit. Just don't overdo it, just a little bit brighter makes it nicer. At the same time, I go to my ground cover and I'm doing the same but the opposite way. So I decrease the brightness a bit so that the color of the ground cover and the color of the grass don't seem so far off. Similarly, I can decrease the stone flooring also a little bit. Image adjustment, brightness, contrast, and I reduce that one also by a little bit so that everything glues together a bit better. So that shows how we add a ground cover. Next, I will be adding a solitary tree to my design, and I will plant it inside the ground cover. So I can close this file, no need to save. Oh, and then I open. And the tree that I'm going to put in is also in my list already, which is a plumeria. This is a plumeria that has been saved as a PSD file, a PNG file, which has no background. So it's very easy to bring it in. I just duplicate it directly into the drawing. Plop. Here we go. And then I can place it somewhere around my ground cover. I put it in front so that I can then blend it in more nicely. So once I feel that I'm happy with the location, I can add a layer mask and I can start covering the areas that I don't want visible. So I just work for black, black and black. Okay, I can use actually the grass brush if I want. That will prevent the thing from standing out strangely. So then it looks more like it's in between my grass like that. Look at that. Yeah. Now the only thing is probably for this one I also want to decrease the brightness a little bit. So there's a bit up, not a layer mask, the layer itself. It's very important that you make sure you use the right. It's very easy to accidentally have the layer mask instead of the layer itself selected. Okay, that's that. So that concludes the second tutorial for adding shrubs and ground covers, and also to add some solitary trees to the perspective.